Rena Bryson, and you're very welcome to this month's Eva's Echo blog. This month I'll be going over the mistakes that I've learned from the most in my arts career so that hopefully you don't have to. The first lesson that I had to learn was that there is no right way to act or to create art in general. Especially coming straight out of drama school, we are focused on very specific techniques. You kind of rely on these rules on how to act. What I've learned over the years is to gain as much knowledge as possible, work with as many professionals, learn from as many teachers, get as much training as you can, and then take everything that works for you and implement it into your craft. What works for one person isn't going to work for another, as we're all individuals. And I really try and bring that into all of my classes, especially when I'm teaching beginners on how to act. The second lesson I learned was a bit more practical. Get a contract. Particularly as Irish artists, we can be very awkward about asking for a contract. And even asking about money or our rate of pay in general. Especially as an artist starting out, I know that I felt so grateful to even be presented with the opportunities. I was afraid to ask for a contract in case I would be rocking the boat or seeming that I wasn't trusting the companies that were hiring me. But it is so important to get a contract. Having a contract means that you will have your rate of pay secured. Even if you're working on a profit share show, it means that you get a contract that just has that percentage down instead of a figure. It means that you're protected against any workplace bullying. It means that you're definitely going to be working in a safe environment, the venue and the rehearsal space. It ensures that you're going to be credited for all of your work, which is why it's important to have a contract even if you're not being paid, because otherwise your image or footage of you can be used without you being credited, and you're not really benefiting from the experience then. It can be awkward to ask, especially starting out, but people will ultimately respect you for doing it. The third lesson is the one that I struggled with the most, and it wasn't just something that affected me in my early career. I would say I've only just finally learned this lesson after making the mistake over and over and over and over again about last year. So this lesson that I needed to learn was how to say no. I was terrified. Absolutely terrified of saying no to any opportunity in case I'd be turning down something that I was either going to meet a great friend or a great collaborator at, or if it was going to be a project that was going to grow into something huge, or even I was afraid to say no because I knew that I'd really enjoy working on projects. But I was stretching myself way, way, way too thin. And I eventually hit burnout because at one point I was working about 7 different projects at once. But I've finally learned that lesson, and I've come up with a system of a few questions which I find are very useful to ask myself before taking on another project. Sometimes looking back, I feel that I've taken opportunities up because I was scared not to do it rather than because I wanted to do it. And that can be a very dangerous cycle to get into, because if you think about it, you could be missing out on an opportunity of something that you really do want to do because you've said yes to something that you're actually not that into, but you were just too scared to say no. This next lesson, again, was very hard to learn, and I feel that it only came with time. Don't be intimidated. It's probably the worst kept secret in the world that a lot of the time, especially when it comes to Irish arts, but arts in general, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Which means that starting out a career in the arts, you really do have to learn how to network. It's not fair, it's not right, but unfortunately, it's kind of the way it is. So it's really important to learn not to be intimidated by other artists, especially those that you might want to collaborate with. Especially when I was studying performing arts, I would get very, very intimidated by anyone who I kind of aspired to reach where they were, or I dreamt about working with someday. And I look back now and I see that I really was putting these artists on an inhuman pedestal that of course made them seem completely unapproachable. But okay, story time. When I was about 18, I went to go see a live talk with Gary Hines. And at the time I was studying like a VTech in acting in Cavan, and I saw this talk and it just like changed everything on my perspective. I was like, okay, yes, this acting thing, this can be a serious career, because I was literally just that inspired by this talk with Gary Hines. So obviously from having that experience and it severely changing my life and my career path, I idolized Gary Hines and everything that was done at Druid. I wrote my undergrad and my postgraduate thesis on Druid's work. So when I ended up working at Druid as an intern and I was meeting all of these actors that I had put on pedestals, and most importantly of all, meeting and interacting with Gary Hines, who I had put on this massive pedestal, it was such a bizarre experience to realize that they're just human. And in my experience, the further up to the top you go, the actually more sound and down to earth the people are, because people at the top don't have anything to prove. So people that we find intimidating sometimes aren't that scary at all. In fact, that's going to be the story most of the time. So if you want to collaborate with an artist, or if you even just want to network with other artists and share experiences and learn from them, pop a company an email or pop an artist a message. Or if you know someone in common, get them to introduce you. Communicating with artists, especially in theatre, is so important. And everybody's scared at first, so that's okay. The fifth and final lesson I'd like to share is that every production is different. When I came out of my performing arts course, my undergrad in Sligo, I had this very strict and straightforward idea of what working on a production was, because that's what I was taught, that's what I studied. But I realised very quickly out of college that the two productions that I worked on first were completely different. And I don't just mean the script was different, the genre was different, although that was also very true. I mean that the atmosphere was totally different, because every director is going to want a different rehearsal room. Some rehearsal rooms are going to be very light, there's going to be a lot of laughter, there's going to be a bit of banter between the actors and the director and the stage manager and the design. Everyone's just going to be having the crack and having a laugh. But there are other rehearsal rooms which are more what I was expecting coming out of college, that are going to be very strict, very quiet, very serious. And that's okay. The same as a different acting technique working for all different actors, the same is said for directing, and every director is going to want a different atmosphere in their rehearsal room. So it's important to learn how to gauge at the first read-through or the first rehearsal what type of rehearsal room the director is expecting, and to then be able to implement that, and to be up for the crack if it's a light, fun rehearsal room, but also be prepared to be more reserved if it's that kind of rehearsal room. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you enjoyed these mistakes/lessons and that you've learned something today. There'll be a much more eloquent version of this blog/vlog up on evasecho.com, and don't forget to follow all of our socials. Bye! And here's some puppy outtakes, so if you want to watch another video, they're popped up on the side, or, you know,